All right, so today we're diving into a really provocative argument, one that flips the scripts and points the camera inward on the Black community. The source we're looking at introduces this idea of Black fatigue, but probably not in the way you're thinking. This isn't about being tired of racism. It's about a fatigue with what the speaker sees as self-inflicted problems. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the entire argument really hinges on this one core concept. As you can see, the source defines Black fatigue in a pretty surprising way. It's not about being worn down by outside forces or oppression. No, the speaker is framing this as a collective exhaustion with what they describe as destructive behaviors and a serious lack of accountability coming from inside the community itself.
And this quote, wow, it really just lays the whole thesis out on the table. The main argument here is that the default is to blame external forces, specifically the white man, and that this prevents any real confrontation with internal issues. This idea of personal and collective accountability is the one threat you're going to see again and again throughout this entire critique.
So you might be asking, how does this fatigue actually show up? Well, the source points to three core problems, and the first one they tackle is crime. The speaker does not pull any punches on this. They're basically reframing the whole issue of crime, not as something being done to the community from the outside, but as an internal problem. According to this source, the responsibility for the violence happening in Black neighborhoods lies with the people who live there. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. It's how the speaker connects the culture to the consequences. They argue that a culture that glorifies violence directly creates real-world instability. This, in turn, leads to what the speaker calls third-world conditions, which makes it pretty much impossible for kids to have a stable life. And the most important takeaway from their point is this: the number one victims of this entire cycle are Black people themselves.
And this critique of cultural values doesn't stop with crime. It flows directly into the second big problem that the source identifies, and that's the community's relationship with education.
I mean, this is a really blunt assessment of what the community values. The speaker is claiming that the culture puts entertainers and athletes up on a pedestal, while at the same time it looks down on academics and intellectuals. And they argue that this choice directly holds the community back. So according to the source, this devaluing of education leads to what they call an anti-intellectual mindset. A huge part of this is the idea that doing well in school is somehow a betrayal of your Black identity, that it's acting white. The speaker says this exact mindset is killing the community's future, because if you don't value knowledge, you can't pass it down. And the result? Poor academic outcomes on a national level. All right, now we get to the third problem, and let's be clear, this is by far the most controversial point in the source material. We're talking about the structure and the dynamics of the Black family. Okay, so this is a direct quote, and it is a highly explosive claim. The speaker's argument here is that the blame for the community's problems falls squarely on the shoulders of Black women, who they accuse of both running the community and also failing to take accountability. And this slide really breaks down the solution that the speaker is pushing for. It's a pretty radical restructuring of gender roles. The source is calling for men to aggressively take power and bring back a more patriarchal order. In this vision, women are expected to give up control, learn to be supportive, and listen. It even extends to family structure, where the speaker argues men should get custody of children because they believe men provide better care. So after identifying these three huge problems, the source doesn't just stop there. It actually issues a direct call to action, and it points to a very specific group to lead this change. The speaker singles out one group and one group only as the last best hope: Black Gen Z. The message is pretty straightforward. Older generations have failed. It's now up to this younger generation, and them alone, to step up and fix these deep-seated problems before it's just too late. So what does this action plan actually look like? Well, this slide lays out the source's 5-point mandate, aimed specifically at young Black men. It's basically a blueprint for taking control, from being extremely aggressive with power to going back into the community to set new standards, asserting control in the family, and even trying to get custody of children. The ultimate goal is to save the future by creating a new model of strong, dominant male leadership. So, if we boil this entire argument down to its core, this is what you get. The source is saying that progress is impossible as long as the community is blaming outsiders. In their view, the only way forward is a radical and sometimes harsh focus on internal accountability and a total overhaul of culture, education, and the family. And all of this leaves us with one final and really crucial question. When a community is told to look only inward to solve its problems, what are the potential upsides of that intense focus? And, just as importantly, what are the potential costs of ignoring the world outside?